Hello there, and welcome to the Go Home Show. I am Cy the Guy, here with you on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. We will be discussing AEW Dynamite from last night. I I know some of the posting times for my channel are a little wonky. It's because I work overnights in retail, so bear with me. That's why I need your guys' support to get me to a point where I can make this my full-time job. So let's grow this channel, and I appreciate you so much for being here. Let's get into this right after the intro. So AEW Dynamite last night started off with Kevin Knight versus MJF. This is a match that was made official last week, and it is for the TNT Championship. One thing to make note of is Taz was back on commentary, so that was good to see. I'm a big Taz fan on commentary, so that was really refreshing. I think Taz, along with Tony Schiavone, I think it's a smoother. I am a big Corey Graves fan of WWE, but I like this pairing more than I do him and Michael Cole. I've never been a huge Michael Cole fan on commentary, but yeah, I really enjoy this trio of commentators that they have over here in AEW. So we get this match. It was also made known to the audience that we were getting this match with limited commercial interruption. So that was a little refreshing. WWE would never. So we get started. MJF tosses Knight outside. He throws him into the steps and the barricade. Then he throws him back in the ring. Knight ends up hitting a springboard spinning crossbody. MJF then hit a back suplex into a cutter. It looked great. MJF is just so good, man. MJF is legitimately one of the best in the world. MJF went for a heat seeker. Knight escaped and hit a jumping DDT. Knight started unloading right hands on MJF. I will say Kevin Knight's punches look very realistic. I mean, in the ring, Kevin Knight is great. He just has to work on that promo ability, which sparring back and forth on the mic with people like MJF that's how you get somebody to improve. He just has to sound more natural. He kind of just sounds a little forced right now on the microphone. But he'll get there. I have no doubts he'll get there. So then Knight hit a beautiful drop kick followed by a running frog splash. The height he gets on just these running jumps, I mean, the height he got, he was higher than the turnbuckle. So then he hit a suicide dive. So this is where MJF started, every time Kevin Knight would roll MJF into the ring, MJF would then roll out immediately to the other side. So Knight goes up top. MJF rolled out of the ring. Knight then hits a springboard crossbody, puts MJF back in the ring, and then MJF rolls out the other side. Then he hit a suicide dive, rolls MJF back in. MJF rolled right back out to the other side. And then Knight hit then a tope con hilo, rolls MJF back in the ring. MJF rolls back out. Knight then hit a springboard clothesline, and the height he got MJF was standing at the bottom of the entrance ramp, and Kevin Knight still hit him. The height and distance he covered here is crazy. So then he clotheslined him. He did a springboard clothesline off the top rope. MJF then went for a heat seeker again when they got back in the ring, but Knight reversed it into a roll-up. Both guys traded pinfall attempts. Knight ran off the ropes, and MJF hit him with a smooth pop-up cutter. Looked beautiful. Got a 2 count. Knight was up top with MJF. He got pushed off the top, and then his knee buckled, so he was selling the knee for the rest of the match. MJF was still sitting up top, and Knight hit a leaping Hurricane Rana and then sold the knee on the landing. Knight went for a UFO frog splash, but nobody was home. MJF then went for a figure four leg lock. Knight reversed it, shoved him into the corner. Knight then charged at MJF, but his knee gave out. So his knee gave out as he was running at MJF in the corner, and then he was on his knees. As he's down on his knees, MJF hit him with the super kick, followed by a Panama Sunrise for a near fall. Then we go to commercial. I want to say, too, it's nice to actually be able to get into the meat of a match, right? Like, we get the match starts, and then we get a commercial at a time that makes sense, so it doesn't take you out of the match. That's one of my issues with the format of WWE programming is you'll get an ad break, then you'll start the match, and 3 minutes into the match, you get another ad break. It completely takes, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it completely takes me out of it, totally. Then, if after so many matches that are formulaic and basically set up the same way, it takes me out of the show. And that's why, like, this last Monday, I felt just completely exhausted after the show. Friday nights are like that. You just feel tired. It's a chore to watch. So this was really refreshing on Wednesday to just sit back and enjoy some pro wrestling and not get pissed off at the format of the show. There are not everything is perfect with AEW. Don't get me wrong. There are some things that I don't really understand why they're doing them, and we'll get into those. But overall, just from the aspect of enjoying the show and watching on a week to week basis, AEW is the best show. It was the best show last week for sure. And this week, I mean, not to count out SmackDown or anything, but I'm going to go ahead on a limb since it was better than Monday Night Raw. Go out on a limb here and say that AEW Dynamite will be the best show of the week again for the second week in a row. So then when we come back from commercial, MJF had a single leg crab locked in on Knight. Knight fought out of it. Then he goes after MJF again, but the knee buckles and he collapsed again. MJF leapt off the top rope, but Knight was able to hit him with a super kick in midair. Knight then hit a UFO frog splash for a near fall. MJF was on the apron and Knight went for a boot, but MJF caught his leg and dragon screwed him into his leg in between the ropes on the injured knee, of course. And then MJF managed to hit a picture perfect Alabama slam for a series of 2 counts. MJF then grabbed the TNT title. The ref took it from him. MJF then grabbed the Dynamite ring, and when he went to hit Knight with it, Knight gave him a low blow and rolled him up for the flash victory. MJF genuinely looked stunned. He genuinely looked stunned here. And then MJF went to attack Kevin Knight after the match. Darby descended from the ceiling just as Sting had so many times. It doesn't hit the same. Call me an old head, but Darby descending from the ceiling will never hit the same as the Stinger, especially because when Sting used to do it, there used to be 35 guys in the ring for the representing the NWO, and he would just come out and beat the shit out of all of them. So then they grab the microphones. MJF is up the ramp. Darby's in the ring with Kevin Knight. He says he doesn't care about the match tonight. He was barely trying. Darby says no to MJF's request yet again. MJF requested an immediate rematch for his title. Darby says no. Then he says he does know someone who does deserve a shot. And he looks at Kevin Knight. So next week, Kevin Knight's getting a shot. And this is one of the aspects that I'm not a huge fan of. So in the world of pro wrestling between the two companies right now, it feels like we're getting open challenge to death, right? WWE has 2 open challenges now, and Darby's doing one. The thing I don't like about AEW's open challenge, though, is you don't do that for the world title, right? I know some of you may think that, well, we're getting great matches, so that increases the value of the title. It would if we were getting great matches that had where these people that are challenging earn their shot, right? And WWE does this too. They just throw somebody into a storyline or lack thereof. They just throw somebody into the championship spot. It's like whatever happened to number one. I mean, and call me old school again, but whatever happened to number one contenders matches? Whatever happened to number one contender tournaments like the King of the Ring tournaments of old, right? I don't. I'm not a fan of open challenges. It screams lazy creative writing to me. I get what they're trying to do with Darby. They're trying to give him his moment, but I think a lot of the problem stems from last week when Darby says, everybody back there in that locker room deserves a shot at the title. No, they don't. That's what separates your world championship from your mid card titles. No, they do not deserve a shot. If I'm being honest, people should be vying for, like, people should be scratching and clawing, doing whatever it takes to become a number one contender for a mid card title. Imagine what they should be doing to become a number one contender for the world heavyweight title. It shouldn't just be this random open challenge thing. That's my issue with it. That's not to say we're not getting good matches, guys. There's just more nuance to the world of professional wrestling than getting good matches. I think we can all agree there. So that's my issue with this. Um, right after Darby said that he would be facing Kevin Knight next week, Brody King comes out, got in MJF's face. He told Darby he won't survive tonight. And then he told Kevin Knight that he has bad news for him. You won't be facing Darby Allin. You'll be facing me. So next week we'll be getting Kevin Knight and Darby Allin. Should be a banger of a match. But again, that's not my issue. I want to make that perfectly clear. You can have good matches, but there's just more nuance to the sport of pro wrestling. Next, we got the Brawling Birds versus some enhancement talent. This was a squash match for the Brawling Birds. They ended up hitting the heart attack. I forget what they call it, but like I said, I'm an old school guy. They ended up hitting the heart attack for the win. It was pretty simple. They're trying to get them to a point where they will challenge for the women's tag titles. Then we got a Tekla segment. She says, I'd like to stop calling people dumb bitches, but there are just so many dumb bitches in AEW. Then they basically warned the Brawling Birds to stick to tag team wrestling. I know some people, Tekla's one of those wrestlers, some people either really like her or she's just not your cup of tea. I lead more towards she's not my cup of tea. That's not to say she's not talented. That's not to say that she's not a good women's champ. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point that they are setting up for Mercedes and Tekla when Mercedes comes back. And I think that's the way to go. I think the way to go is putting the women's title on Mercedes. So hopefully this creative writing team for AEW can book it in a way that gets us excited to see it. And hopefully Mercedes comes back with a different character besides the belt collector. Next up, we had Kazuchika Okada versus Ace Austin for the International Championship. The match started with Okada putting the boots to Austin. Austin hit a rolling drop kick toe hold. Rolling. Jeez Louise. Can't even read my own fucking notes here. Austin hit a rolling drop toe hold followed by a kick to the back. He rolled Okada up for a 1 count. Then he hit a drop kick that took Okada down. Austin hit a Death Valley driver, and then he hit a springboard roundhouse kick. It was at this moment where I was like, okay, I've never heard of this Ace Austin kid, but holy shit, he can go. He can go. He kind of reminds me of a young Pac, of when Pac was, what was his name in NXT? What was it, Neville? He kind of reminds me of that. They're built pretty much the same. But he reminds me of a young Pac. when he was in NXT. Okada bailed to the outside. Austin went for a dive off the top, but Okada moved. Austin hit the floor. Okada then spiked him with a DDT on the outside. Okada hit a scoop slam. Then he hit his elbow drop where he just kind of falls. He doesn't jump. Then Austin and Okada dump each other outside. Austin hit a running kick while he was on the apron. Then he hit a Bonsbury flop, which is AJ Styles is one of my favorites of all time. Nobody will ever hit this move the way he did, the way he used to in back in his TNA days. Nobody will ever hit this move the way AJ Styles did. Truly one of the greatest of all time. But kudos to the kid for trying. It's a tough move. So then after that, he hit a knee to the face followed by a Russian leg sweep. Then he hit a leg drop. And then Austin hit a spinning leg drop off the top rope as Okada was hunched over. So it landed on the back of Okada's head. Okada then gained control of the match after that. He missed a drop kick. Austin rolled him up for 2. Austin went for a springboard, but Okada met him with a drop kick in midair. It looked like this drop kick landed flush on Ace Austin's jaw. Like his head snapped back. It looked brutal. Okada went for the Rainmaker, but Austin ducked. He hit a backslide pin attempt for a near fall. It was as near a fall as you could possibly get. Okada then hit another drop kick that landed the same way as the first one. Just looked like it sucked to take that drop kick. Then he hit a tombstone, Rainmaker 1, 2, 3. That was it. And then we get Konosuke Takeshita came out, stood on the stage, and him and Okada had like a stare down. I'm very excited for that match. And as far as Ace Austin goes, man, if the guy can perform like that, feature him on Dynamite more. That's how you build new stars. And the way you build new stars in AEW, it's kind of different than WWE, because in AEW, we understand that wrestling is prioritized more so than promo ability. So if the guy can perform like that, he's going to get over just by his wrestling ability alone. So just feature him in some banger matches and then have him, work on his promo ability and then have him cut some promos afterwards, But this is how you build new stars. You got to feature them on Dynamite. Not enough people are watching Collision to build new stars on Collision. You got to feature them on Dynamite. So that's just my sense, my 2 cents on that. Then we got a vignette. Oh, how refreshing it was to see a good old school wrestling vignette, man. They don't do these enough anymore. I think back to like Razor Ramon with the vignettes. Like that's all of this helps the presentation of a new rising star. And WWE never does these vignettes. I'm a big vignette guy. So we got a vignette. So we see a small little old school country town. There are people lying unconscious in the dirt road. There's a guy running out of a saloon in terror. And then we see someone walking out of the saloon down the dirt road. And they stop right at this wanted poster that's kind of buried in the dirt a little bit. They pick up the wanted poster. And we see that the wanted poster says "Wanted Bandito" on it. And then the camera pans and we see that it is in fact Swerve holding a wanted poster of Bandito. And then he uses a torch to light the wanted poster on fire. Swerve is back. I love Swerve. Swerve's damn good at what he does. And that is one thing that I think right now AEW has over the WWE is in AEW. Despite me not being a fan of the Open Challenge, I mean, let's call it what it is. AEW's world title scene is a lot more interesting because there's a lot more contenders. WWE just kind of picks somebody and they're like, okay, this is who's contending now. It sucks. It sucks. There should be several guys vying for the world title. And in AEW, that's what you have right now. Swerve's back, right? You got Darby doing the open challenge. MJF's gonna get his title back at some point. Will Ospreay's trying to get there. Kenny Omega is trying to get there again. There's a lot of it leads to unpredictability, which is a good thing. The only thing that's predictable is the open challenge, which is another aspect of why I don't like them. You know Darby's not losing because MJF's taking the belt back from him. And that's really the downside to the open challenge thing. Then we get the Death Riders in the back. So they're training, but it's just like on the floor in a concrete like basement thing. And they say you can't be the best out there until you're the best back here. And then Will Ospreay walks in. John Moxley tells him, I'm going to need you to drop everything. The emotions that tug at your heartstrings, the anger that burns a hole in your stomach, any excess baggage, your feelings about me, drop it. I don't promise miracles, but when I make a commitment, I see it through to the end. All I ask is the same in return. Ospreay then walks into the training area, and then he kind of had a face off there with Pac, stared each other down. Ospreay asks, "Where's the ring?" Moxley says, we don't use a ring. And then Moxley turns around to the camera. He says, the rest is proprietary. And he kicked the camera guy out, basically. A lot of people will say AEW is all wrestling and no story. This is AEW. They're giving you a story. Are we into the story enough to say whether it's good or not? No, but they're giving you a story. So I'm not going to complain when they're trying to build storylines. It's all about the payoff, though. If the payoff is worth it for this storyline, then it's a good storyline. If the payoff for this storyline sucks, or if it ends up fizzling out, then obviously it's not going to work. But they're starting to get some storylines going, and that's what AEW was needing. Some long-term storylines that gets the audience invested and makes you want to see, hey, I want to see how this turns out next week. So we got the Death Riders kidnapping Will Ospreay, basically, and now we understand that they're kind of going for this like rebuild thing, where the Death Riders are going to rebuild Will Ospreay into this probably like ultra aggressive version of himself, which he's going to need if he wants to be world champ. So it makes total sense to me. And we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they keep booking it in a way that maintains interest. Then we got Adam Copeland and Christian Cage versus RPG Vice. FTR and Stoke were on commentary. Then we get Christian hit a reverse DDT, tagged in Copeland. They hit a big boot Russian leg sweep combo. Trent Beretta hit a standing Meteora for a 2 count. Cope hit a big boot. Christian does his standing choke on the ropes after the tag. Cage throws Beretta into the barricade. Cash Wheeler distracted Cage, and then Beretta attacks the injured arm of Christian. The conglomeration comes out. They attacked FTR and Stoke and basically took him out of the match. Then we get back from commercial break and we see RPG Vice double teaming Christian. They continue attacking the injured arm. Romero then locks in an armbar on Cage. Cage got to the ropes. Christian hit a tornado DDT on Romero. He made the hot tag to Copeland, who hit an impaler DDT for a 2 count. RPG Vice went for a double team. Cage and Cope reversed it for a near fall. Beretta reversed a spear attempt into a roll-up for a 2 count. Beretta ran at Copeland, who tossed Beretta up. He just tossed him up in the air. And then Cage hit a spear. Looked pretty cool. The match was okay. They ended up winning off of that. Cage then grabbed a steel chair. He broke the bottom bar of the steel chair off of the steel chair. And then he handed it to Copeland, who locked in a crossface on Beretta using the bar from the steel chair. Christian says, you know what to say, then say it. Holds the microphone to Beretta. Beretta says, I quit. Christian then says, this made me chuckle. Christian then says, I would never say I quit, you little bitch. And then he throws the microphone down. And obviously this was a foreshadowing of their I Quit match against FTR coming up at Double or Nothing. So the match was it was kind of a nothing match. It was an average, run of the mill match, but I do think it did its job in generating some, maybe a little bit of interest in the Adam Copeland, Christian Cage versus FTR story. I fully expect them to win at Double or Nothing. Doesn't make sense for them to lose, because if they lose, remember, they can never, as a tag team, they're done. So they're definitely not winning. Or FTR is definitely not winning. Then we see Jericho backstage. Renee asked if the Rico salt is an improvement on the lion salt. Before Jericho could finish his answer, the Demand attacked him and beat him up. Ricochet then asked, "Is this what you wanted?" Jericho responds with, "Eat shit, Baldy." Kind of made me laugh. They beat him up some more, and then Ricochet pretended like he was going to do a lion salt, but he landed on his feet. Says, "You're not even worth it." I don't know what the payoff for this is going to be. I think Jericho getting his ass kicked is a good thing, though, every week. I'm assuming they're trying to build some sympathy for him. So, whatever we can do to make it so the audience doesn't get tired of Jericho, that's what we need to do. And I think they're doing that so far. Hopefully, we can keep it going. Then we got Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida versus Divine Dominion. Cross started off. She hit spears in the corner on Shida, big shoulder block. Bane went for a fallaway slam that was botched. This match started off very rough. It just seemed like the timing was off in the first half for whatever reason. Bane went for a fallaway slam that was botched. Shida hit a running knee in the corner. Bane went for a spine buster that was also botched. And just the landing something was off with the landing here. And then Shida went to use her kendo stick. This is kind of where it flipped. And the second half of this match was actually pretty decent. Shida went to use the kendo stick. Statlander stopped it, pulled the kendo stick, which pulled Shida with the kendo stick. And it actually pulled Shida out of the way of a spear that was coming her way. So I thought that was kind of a neat little spot there. Bane missed the spear and ended up hitting the post. The crowd. So then what happened? Shida then booted Statlander in the midsection and suplexed her. And the crowd reacted as if this was... So, if you're not aware, Shida and Statlander are building to a betrayal angle. Shida's going to turn on her at some point. The crowd reacted as if this was that moment, which makes me wish they never did it, because now when they do the betrayal, it's not going to hit quite as much. She suplexed Statlander onto Bane. Crowd reacted as if we just witnessed the betrayal. Statlander hit a double Hurricane Rana after the commercial break, followed up with a discus lariat on Bane. Statlander tagged in Shida as Bane tagged in Cross. Shida hit a drop kick off the second rope, followed by a running knee, and then a drop toe hold on Cross. Shida hit a running knee on both of them. Cross hit a hook kick on Shida, who fell back into her corner and ended up actually making the tag to Chris Statlander. They eventually hit two big running boots, followed by a released German suplex. It was really good tag team wrestling here. Statlander ducked a clothesline. Shida hit a big kick. Statlander hit a blue thunder bomb on Bane. Big kick on Cross. Then she stacked both of them up and hit a 450 splash on both of them for a near fall. Statlander is going for something, and then Shida tags herself in. Shida hit a Meteora off the top rope, followed by a Falcon Arrow for another near fall. Shida went for a running knee, but got a belly-to-belly by Bane instead. Statlander hit a super kick on Bane. Cross grabbed Statlander in the German suplex position. Bane ran at her and hit a big kick as Cross hit the German suplex. They then hit the double choke slam on Shida for the 3 count. And the second half of this match, very solid. I think all four ladies did very good at reeling this thing back in. I don't know what happened with the timing and that aspect of it in the first half, but this just goes to show just because a match starts off bad, man, does not mean you can't save the match. So then we got a squash match here. Roosh versus Stephen Fuerte, an enhancement talent. Fuerte went to shake Roosh's hand, got clocked with a massive right hand. Then he got thrown into the barricade a few times. Roosh put the boots to him, and then Roosh hit a huge chop on Fuerte. Roosh started stomping the fuck out of this guy, and then he hit his get the horns dropkick in the corner, and that was it. Roosh grabs the microphone and says, "Remember, when you mess with the bull, you get the horns." Nice little squash match there. I think Roosh is time to challenge for a title. I would suggest the TNT Championship, maybe. I think it's time to challenge for a title here. It's here. You can start putting him in these championship situations. See if the guy's got it or not. He's pretty over with the crowd, so why not take advantage? Then we see the Ops backstage. They're asked what's next, and Samoa Joe says it's time to reassert their dominance. Their ride to the top includes strategic acquisition. He says he hopes and prays that Will Ospreay isn't suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. The Death Riders had you in the same position they saved you from. Who came and took you out of that situation? We did, Will. Do you want a relationship of convenience or one of confidence? The Ops are here and the choice is yours. So, looks like Will Ospreay is a popular guy. He's got multiple groups vying for his inclusion. So, we'll see. We'll see. It's just another little element to the story, and it's getting interesting. I hope this creative team can keep the interest, because if this pays off correctly, this can be a really good story. So then we get FTR and Ciampa. They claim they're going after the trios titles. I'm not a trios title guy. I think they're a waste of time, but is what it is. I'm a big Tommaso Ciampa fan. I want to see him get what he deserves one day. The guy deserves a world title. Tommaso Ciampa deserves a world championship. He's that caliber of a wrestler. Then we get to our main event. Darby Allin versus Brody King. Darby hit a drop kick. Brody then hit a German suplex followed by a cannonball. Brody and Darby were up top. Darby hit an avalanche code red for a 2 count. Brody rolled outside. Darby went for a suicide dive, but Brody didn't budge an inch. So when Darby, it looked pretty funny. When Darby hit the suicide dive, he literally just hit a Brody King and just bounced off. Brody didn't even move. So I thought that looked pretty cool. Looked kind of like a cartoon. It was pretty funny. Then Brody went for a splash while Darby was sitting in a chair on the outside. Darby moved. Darby sat Brody in the chair and then hit a drop kick off the top rope to the outside. That's got to suck for Darby just as much as Brody, because he's smacking on the floor. Looks brutal every time. Brody sat Darby on the top rope and then hit a chop on Darby that sent Darby spinning to the outside. I mean, it looked brutal. Slammed Darby on the apron. Brody then clears off the announce table. Darby jumped onto Brody King's back, had a sleeper locked in. Brody then ran them both through the wooden cover of the announce table that he had propped up on a barricade. That looked pretty cool. Darby pushed Brody into the announce desk. Darby then ended up hitting a code red on the announce table. The announce table didn't budge at all, just like Brody King didn't on the suicide dive. Looked like it sucked to take. Darby then hit a suicide dive he hit a suicide dive, and that was followed by both men hitting the back of their heads on the announce table. Brody hit a chop to the back. Those always I would much rather take one to the chest if I was going to take one, but that looks like it sucks, man. Then he hit another chop to the chest of Darby, and then he hit a cannonball while Darby was in the Tree of Woe position. He hit a brutal clothesline for a 2 count, hit another brutal clothesline for another 2 count. Brody then grabbed Darby and tossed him over the ropes onto the cameraman. Brody then grabbed Darby. He started dragging him, but Darby held on to the padding that was on the outside covering the concrete. So as Brody's dragging him, he's pulling up the padding. So we have the exposed concrete underneath. Brody chopped Darby and went for a cannonball against the barricade, but Darby moved. Darby then ended up hitting a power bomb off the apron onto the exposed concrete. Then after that, he hit a coffin drop off the top onto Brody, who was laying on the outside on the exposed concrete. Looked fucking awful for both guys. Excuse me. Then Brody rolls into the ring just before the 10 count. I mean, we hit 9 and the ref was about to throw his hands up for the 10 count and Brody rolls in. Darby hit a coffin drop to Brody King's back. Then he goes up again and hits a normal coffin drop to his stomach. 1, 2, 3. That's all she wrote. And this was kind of one of those matches where, you know, both guys are going to be sore as fuck today. Both guys got to be hurting major today. So overall, it was a pretty good match. You know, did I enjoy it as much as last week? No, but it was a good match. I think overall Dynamite was a good show. I mean, there was more hits than misses tonight, last night. So overall, it's a good show. I think it'll end up being the best show of the 3 this week again for the second week in a row. It seems as if Dynamite's gaining some momentum, which is always a good thing. So hopefully they keep this going. Hopefully we keep getting these stories. Hopefully they're told in a way that makes sense. And hopefully, you know, we get to Double or Nothing. And that is when I fully expect MJF to get his title back. And we'll go from there. I think this is all leading up to Will Ospreay taking the title from MJF at Wembley. And I think it's going to be a great story if they tell it properly. And AEW's kind of gaining some momentum. So hopefully they keep it going. And hopefully we have an actual alternative that is entertaining. So we don't have to be stuck in the Attitude Era for very much longer, and WWE actually decides to turn up the heat and decide to book some good television. So when both companies are successful, guys, we're the ones that win because they are competing with each other and they both have to bring their A game. So we should want success for both companies, right? It just makes sense. Thank you so much for joining me for this AEW Dynamite review. I appreciate you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Don't forget to comment your thoughts. Whatever you got to say, man, I will reply to it. I get some really lovely comments from people, and I get some comments that I wish I didn't read, but I respond to both. I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, man. So if you got something to say, if you think I'm an asshole, let me know. If you like the channel, let me know. It's not going to stop us from growing either way. We are going to take this channel to the moon. We are shooting for the moon, but we're hitting the stars. That's how high we're going. Subscribe to the channel. Any engagement helps, guys. I want to take this channel to the next level. I have been very open with this. My goal is to become the Colin Cowherd of pro wrestling, except not wrong all the time. And the only way we're going to get there is by growing our Go Home Show family. So help me out with that. And, you know, I try to post every day. I really do try to post every day. So I am pretty consistent with the posting, despite the fact that I do work overnights, sacrificing some sleep fairly often, you know, but that's what I'm willing to do to get this channel to where it needs to be. So help me out. Any help is appreciated. And let's get up there with the big dogs, man, so then I could do some collaborations. So I think that would be pretty fun. I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow for a news update regarding WWE and potentially more releases. I will also be reviewing the Hulk Hogan documentary as well, so stay tuned for that. We got a lot of good stuff coming, guys. I post very consistently, so stick with me and you're going to get tons of content. Let's grow our family. I will see you tomorrow with both of those videos. Thank you so much.